Hey guys, wanted to talk everybody through a ATO that I installed. This is the first auto top off system that I'm putting on my 45 here. It is an ATO Lite, so it is designed for smaller systems, but it does just fine on this 45 that I've installed it on. It's been on several weeks, and I've watched and monitored the progress on it just to make sure that everything is operating properly. So I'm going to walk you through what I did, what the setup was, how it's working, and any modifications that I made to the setup, because I did modify a little bit basis the instructions just because I had a different preference. And they had some safety features that came with it that I chose not to use because I didn't think they were the right feature for me. So I'll walk you through that as well. So what you've been seeing here are all the stock photos from Amazon where I purchased it. And what I purchased is the AutoAqua Smart ATO system, so the Smart Auto Top-Off system. And you've just been seeing all the photos here that are the stock photos from Amazon. This here is the specific Amazon description. As you can see, it's got pretty decent reviews, 4 stars, 671 reviews. I've read through them and before purchasing just to kind of make sure knew what I was getting. A lot of those negative ones I think are user error. So I did incorporate a lot of those negative ones into my thought process when I installed it. So I'll go through that as well. This is the actual box upon arrival. Just kind of showing you all different surfaces of it, the details that it's providing, and unboxing it here. So obviously it comes with several different things. There's the sensor that goes in the tank. It's magnetically mounted in the tank. We also have the pump that's going to go inside of the RO water reservoir. So that's the pump that's going to pump the water up. Of course, the tubing that the water is going to be moved through. It's actually a decent amount of tubing. It's at the bottom of the tank. That is a tubing guide, of course, to mount onto the tank to guide your tubing where you need it to go. Like I was saying, there's a good amount of tubing. It's all the way in the bottom of my tank, and it's up to the top in the tank, and there is tons of slack. So you got a good amount of tubing there. And then, of course, we have the power supply here to give power to the whole thing to make it work. And there's a instruction booklet, and then there's a little white safety piece, and we'll talk about that more here in a minute. And so this is the specific instructions. You mount the dual sensor at the normal water level. You'll see on that little green sensor there's like a pinch point, and the normal water level, or the water level that you want, should be in that pinch point, and it magnets to the tank. And I will note my tank does have that black rim, as you've seen many times. It does magnet through that black rim. I did not have to cut it or trim it at all. It's a strong enough magnet to hold it in place there. The second step is talking about the siphon brake, which I didn't use, and you'll see that later. But the actual, you'll connect the tubing to the pump, and that pump goes down in the reservoir. And then, of course, we're going to connect power, but we need to do a couple steps before then. So we'll see those steps as we go. And, of course, avoid air bubbles around the sensor, as you do not want to block the sensor. Otherwise, it's not going to feed water to the tank, as well as you don't want to trap an air bubble around there and have it feed more water than it needs. So make sure you put it in an area that does not have a ton of bubbles so you don't mess with the sensor. The next portion here of the instructions is showing that siphon brake, and it's noting that the water level must be below the siphon break when you add it into the tube, as there is a little air inlet, and that needs to be exposed to air in order to break that siphon suction. Again, I didn't use this, and I'll explain why later. But if you do use this, note that it is going to leak water out of that port, so it does need to hang down into the actual reservoir of RO water. And of course, this is kind of what the setup looks like, where it's showing you with the reservoir and your tank and how the setup would look, just kind of graphically here, just showing you what that looks like. And so here's the complete parts list of everything that comes with it. It's the sensor and of course the adapter hub there where everything plugs into. You have the power supply, you have the tubing guide, the actual pump to supply the water out of the reservoir, the siphon break, and the tubing. So it's a very simple setup. Very easy to set up, and you're going to see me here actually doing the setup here in just a second. All right, so we're going to unpack this thing. We have our sensor here that we're going to install in the main display tank. As you can see, I'm kind of moving it up to the top to the position that I want it in. And for me, I'm setting it right on the other side of where my light mount is. And then there's the inside of the tank of where it's going to have the reservoir. So I've got a 3-gallon jug that I got at Walmart there, and I'll be filling that with RO water. And I have my tubing here, so we'll unpack the tubing, and then we will take that tubing and start getting it installed to deliver the water up to the tank. So it's a good amount of tubing there, and it will plug right into that pump. So the tubing will push right onto the end of the pump, and then I will put that whole thing right there. It's pushed right onto the end of the pump, and that whole thing is going to go down into the reservoir. So as you can see, there's suction cups on the back of it. Obviously, I won't be able to stick my hand in there and push the suction cups on, so I will just be shoving that pump all the way down to the bottom of my tank, and it fits right into that open top of that 3-gallon jug, which is about the same as a 5-gallon jug. So, and also note that I don't move it in and out, I just add water to it. There's the 3-way on it. There's a power side, a pump side, so make sure you plug those in properly. Again, I don't add any water. I don't change the pump out of the water reservoir. I just add water to that reservoir. And that's what the little 3-way again looks like there with the pump and the reservoir side. So this is what it looks like with everything plugged in together. Obviously, I haven't plugged in the power yet, or it would be spitting out water, so let's not do that at this point. Don't forget your water loop. I just used painter's tape and taped it up on the back of the stand with my water loop there to make sure that you know, if anything does happen, this is a water delivery system and the end of it is up in the tank. If anything does happen, I do want to make sure there's that water loop so it drips out of the tank and not goes to the electrical. So then here's the tubing up at the top of the tank and the tubing guide. That end on the tubing guide is removable, so I'm going to go ahead and take that off while I mount the tubing guide. So then I just have the guide, and you can see there's 2 different locations on that guide that you can mount it on. I'm going to go ahead and mount that tubing guide on my light bracket, and then I will mount the little tubing guide piece onto the bracket that's screwed onto the light bracket there, and that's what the tubing is going to go through. So the little piece is on there now, and I'm going to take that water tubing and I'm going to thread it through that guide, and that's where it's going to be held for going into the tank. And you can also see the sensor there on the other side, right on the other side of that bracket. So I'm threading that tube through the bracket. You can see it's through the bracket there. It's only a little bit through right now. I'm going to put a little bit farther through later, but I've got a couple mods that I did for my tank that I'll show you here. So you can see it's fully through there, and I am going to go ahead and fasten that in place a little bit better onto that grid that I have on the top of my tank in order to ensure it does not move around. So I took a zip tie and I created an extra guide with that zip tie. I put it through the grate and left enough room to where I can slide the tube in and out for when I need to take the grate off of the tank. So it is fully movable, but that tube is held in place and it is held above the water line. That tube never, ever, ever goes below the water line. So now everything's installed. I'm ready to plug it in and ready to get it going. So again, special note here, I did not use this siphon break piece. As I just showed you, the tube is above the water line, and what this piece is designed to do is if your tube is below the water line, when the pump shuts off, there's a little pinhole in it that will leak water, but it leaks water because it creates that break in the suction in the siphon and won't run your tank to the floor. I am not relying on this. If this fails and my tube is 2 inches below the water, 2 inches of water is going to the floor. If it gets clogged, if anything in any way, shape, or form fails, I am going to run that water to the floor. That does not make me comfortable, which is why I created that extra guide with the zip tie and just kept my tube above the water level. If you keep the tube above the water level, that part is null and void and you don't need it. So I chose not to use it. It made me feel better. It made me feel safer. And that's the decision I made because, again, a little tube with a single hole in it to break the suction and save the backflow just doesn't feel good to me. So I made my own decisions and modified around it. So I'm going to show you it in action here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up that sensor and pull it up above the water level to force the sensor to turn on and have water come out. So you pick it up, it gets above the water level. It's priming there. This is the very first time you can see water coming out. Goes back below the water level, water stops. And of course, that's what an ATO does. When it reads the water level too low, it turns on, pumps water into the tank. When it achieves the right water level, it shuts back off. So here I am putting the grid back in place after that demo, and I will get that line threaded back through and secured through the extra little guide that I created with the zip tie. Of course, you can buy additional guides. I just used a zip tie because I had it there and it was easy. This is what my reservoir underneath looks like. Again, I have a 3-gallon jug. You can see that the pump and everything is at the bottom of that 3-gallon jug. So hopefully this has helped. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, check out some more of my content. Got some great educational videos out there as well, and I will get more content out soon. Thanks, guys.